this extraordinary meeting. We have 2 matters to discuss. It's great to see such a good crowd here, to see the involvement in the community. So what we're going to do, as I said, we've got a public forum. Now, anyone that's wanted to speak's had to register. So I'll just call you up. The first speaker is Simon Bragg. Thank you, Mayor and councillors.
Okay. Thank you again, and I'm probably here on behalf of the Arts Precinct because it's the building is right opposite our precinct, and I think I speak on behalf of the committee that we are very much in favour of the building going ahead. We have no problem with it whatsoever, and while we're having a meeting tonight, this meeting came in earlier, so we just wanted to say that I think on behalf of the committee, yes, we are very much in favour of this going ahead. I feel the council should not hold back on development. Quite frankly, this has been going on for a while. We don't seem to be able to get this town off the ground. I'm very much in favour of future development and this town growing, and it gives us employment, it gives us all sorts of things that are good for the town. And I think if we knock this back, here we go again. The other comment I would make is about drawing lines on a map. I cannot see how that is a heritage area. Quite frankly, it's a tin shed. There's another tin shed on the other side. I can't see any heritage in that building whatsoever. And I'm quite pleased to see it being pulled down. And the other thing I really want to make a point about is competition. There is nothing wrong with competition. Business thrives on competition. And this is competition. I can't see any problem with this whatsoever. And I would encourage council to revisit this and have a really good look at it. As I say, as an individual and as chairman of the Arts Precinct down there, I am all in favour of the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. James Charles.
How we going? Talk to everybody. All right. I wasn't aware that this was an open forum. I was under the impression it was an extraordinary meeting. Is that need to move forward? Okay. Fuck's sake, better? Yep. Okay. I wasn't under the impression this was open for discussion at all at an open forum. I was under the impression it was an extraordinary meeting to be heard.
Just to do with that, Simon,
James.
I didn't find James. I mean, so I didn't find out till today myself, but I'm quite happy to have the open forum before we start the meeting. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, it's my fault. I'm too tall. Too tall. It's a gift. Yeah. There's a few concerns that I've had and heard around about it being competition, for example. It's not really to compete with Mitre 10. It's more a trade-orientated business. It's competing with Young Building Supplies, MBS, Dawson's in Wagga. They are here every day. Young Building Supplies every day, and sometimes twice a day, bringing goods from other towns. There's no rhyme or reason that we shouldn't be competing with them. We're not intending to close anybody. I've talked to other businesses in town that this business will compete with, and I've said to them we're going to do everything we can to not cause a loss of jobs to anybody else. It's not about that, and I understand that's not most of the issues. One of the main issues put forward in the section 79, I think that's what it's called, yep, is about the heritage. I think the heritage is a joke. There's 2 out of 3 of the commercial neighbours are tin sheds, 2 out of 3. An arbitrary line has been drawn to decide where that heritage zone ends. And it's a local heritage zone, not a state heritage zone. I don't think it should be taken into consideration at all. There's also the parking issue is another large issue. To build this with the required car parks would be significantly detrimental to the business. It would remove a significant amount of square meterage. It would cause a relay of the layout and of the plans and of the design that would not be viable, is what it comes down to. I'll leave it there before I get any further. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Jim Preston.
I don't think I'll have trouble with the mic. I'm Jim Preston, for those of you that don't know me. I live in one of the outskirt towns, and with the closing recently of our abattoirs, I think council should give every consideration into letting this business go ahead. They want to employ more people in the town. The council, when all the councillors were elected, that was on their agenda, was to get employment happening in the town. I don't see the problem why it should be blocked, but I don't see it being a heritage-looking building. As you can see by the turnout here today, I think council should start looking after the community and their concerns rather than going off on a separate tangent. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Dave Harris.
Yeah, I don't think I can get up there I'll just stay here. Congratulations to all the council. Fit state to be under these circumstances. It's good to got a roll up support James and your business come to town. Cootamundra retail sector is really struggling since lost the abattoirs and the hardships going through harvest this year. You can stand out the main street, there's not cars up down the street like it used to be. Everyone's talking about a heritage building. I'm probably the only one except for Nick Down, he's passed away, worked in that building. Should have been condemned 20 years ago. So I don't know why I want to work for Barry Best wasn't condemned then. Great thing for the town. There's a few other businesses in town that are struggling to get a few things as well. And we need to get behind their businesses and support them and local businesses so that people going out of town to do their shopping. There's a truck twice a week up and going. 3 times if you ask it to deliver hardware stuff to this town. And this is what people come to the tire set and say, Dave, what's going on here? This is what's going on. It's not a lawyers, not a hairdressers. People just come in there, get a tire fix and download it. And all sorts of language they use at the same time. So I can't understand why we're having this meeting. I'd like to hear my turn up tonight to support James. And there's a few other businesses in town who want to get things happening as well. And we should self-support on them as well.
Thanks, Dave. The last one is Isabel Scott. Hey, what's that? Oh, no. Yep.
Like Dave, I probably don't need a microphone, but still. When I read in the paper that council are recommending the development of the hardware store on Wallandoon Street be blocked, I am both gobsmacked and angry that despite a hard-fought council election, which should have been about economic development and growth, we are still negative naysayers blocking positive economic development and growth, keeping this town in conservative, non-competitive doldrums. Also in the paper, it said that the new development was in the CBD. Council did not consider that part of Wallandoon Street as the CBD some 15 or 16 years ago when there was an old derelict heritage building still there, which was been overrun by vermin, rat-infested disaster, but then jumped on board when a few new people or volunteers got together and did a development. It's the Art Centre, which brings substantial growth and local to our local economy and are the flow-on effect from our investment and the programs. So if anyone feels as though it is the arts end blocking it, we're not. We were all businessmen and we believe in economic development and growth of this town for our very survival. I would like to ask Council, did Council explain to the current owner of the block what conditions of redevelopment were included when the block went up for sale and renewal a few years ago? The other thing is, did Council think, and I've got a little answer by going through the Council notes, that that is a heritage area? Most of the heritage buildings have been bastardised over the years, including our council chambers. We have the old TAFE, which is supposed to be the same architect as the Arts Centre. It doesn't look anything like it. We have Come Alive, which is the same architect. That building doesn't look anything like it. This is not about heritage. This should be about growth for this town and building. Competition is good. And I know that we have a representative from the shop just near where James is building, and they are saying, bring it on. Because competition, if you go down there to buy a plant, you're going to stay down there because if one doesn't have it, the other might. And who's to say those two people don't get together and work together? Have different things. Most of all, this new development will prevent huge funds going out of Cootamundra weekly for building materials. And this would I deem excellent enterprise, and thank goodness someone has seen the light. Unless there are some really offensive hidden agendas which we are not privy to, and the perceived heritage issues should not prevent the development, bring it on.
Thank you, Isabel. My apologies to Judy, Rachel and Jeff. I found those other three here in amongst my papers. So I'd now like to call on Judy Emery.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I haven't made notes, but I just would like to support the application. I realise there are probably planning issues that I don't understand and that many of us don't understand that council has to comply with. But I think that we voted a new council in with great enthusiasm. Cootamundra needs more people, more jobs. And what I'd like to say is that our home at the farm was renovated recently. We're 26 kilometres toward Temora. All the building materials came from Young, not from Cootamundra. So congratulations to James for trying, and let's get behind him. If he needs support from the council to guide him through the process, he's a young man who needs your support, so please do it.
Thanks, Judy. Now I'll call on Rachel Morby.
Hello, my name is Rachel Morby and I own the nursery right next door to where the hardware store is going to open, and I fully support James in his endeavour.
Thank you, Rachel. Jeff Wallace.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's great to see a young couple stay in town, investing in the town and bringing up their children here. I mean, it all goes around. More kids in the school, you know, and I know for a fact, I used to own the caravan park here, used to run the caravan park. Reece Plumbing have a truck here, 1 o'clock every day, delivering plumbing supplies, etc. And other people have talked about it, but there's so much stuff coming in from outside the area. So yeah, anyway, congratulations to them, and I hope it all goes ahead and the council can help them in every way they possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Now, Justin Smith. Yep, thanks, Justin. Firstly, I'd like to thank all those who participated in that public forum. It's good to hear what you think, because, you know, we're the councillors here to listen to the biggest thing we've got to do as councillors, or the best attribute we can have, is to be good listeners. Because, you know, even though we're here on council, we need you as outsiders and community members to help us along. We've got to just work together. So it's, I'd like to thank once again, thank everyone that spoke there tonight. Thank you. Right, we can now all open the meeting. Firstly, I'll just do the acknowledgement of the country. Council acknowledges the Wiradjuri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which the meeting is held. Council pays respect to elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri nation, and extend their respect to other Aboriginal people who are present. We have two apologies tonight. The first is from Councillor Craig Stewart, and I'll just read out his written apology. I cannot attend Thursday's meeting due to a non-pecuniary interest. Might attend is my life and blood, as is council. If I said no to this development, then it would be said it was because I work at another hardware. If I said yes, then I would be shot, sorry. I also wanted put in the minutes and noted that I am for any new development and business in our shire. I look forward to our meeting on the 24th. Thanks, Stewie. So that's very good. You know, we've got to be very sure that any councillors don't have non or pecuniary interests. So Stewie can't be here tonight. And also Lee Bowden is in Sydney, so she won't be here. Now we'll move on then to the our first issue, which is the development application .111 for a hardware store at 15 Wallendoon Street. Do you want me to read any of? Everyone's got a paper if they want it.
No, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is there, Mr. Mayor. It's been assessed in accordance with the existing council policies, and so it's really up to the council.
So you've no doubt all the councillors have read it through and through. Is there any? We'll have debate now. So is there any comments from any of the councillors? Councillor Palmer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We have a responsibility to our communities to pursue the best outcomes in regard to our growth and development. And every candidate stated so during the election process. We have been elected to look after the future of our towns, and we must be proactive. Common sense, enthusiasm, and assistance in all areas must be applied to all applicants. I believe this development is permitted with council consent. I move that this council not accept the recommendation of the staff in regard to DA number 2017-82 submitted by Mr. Blake. In doing so, I acknowledge the fact that the staff have prepared this instrument of refusal in accordance with the adopted council policy and guidelines. However, this can be varied in particular circumstances. I further move that if this development is permitted with council consent, that the General Manager prepare a notice of approval for the application for the next council meeting on 31st October. Now, I need somebody to second that motion, please.
I'm happy to second that motion.
The motion seconded by Councillor Shane. And now, is there any debate? Would someone like to speak? Or Charlie, you'll speak to that motion.
I'll speak to that motion. I'll be brief. I'll just use a quote from the Community Strategic Plan, which states, quote, that the community want to see council lead a dynamic and innovative approach to encouraging economic development and ensuring that the region is primed to capture new business opportunities, unquote.
Thank you. Gil, Councillor Kelly, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a short statement. From the outset, let me say that any decision made here tonight is by no means a reflection on staff on council. They have derived their consent decision based on the current parameters given to them in regards to any development application. Maybe now is an appropriate time to change these parameters to make it easier for developers to make an application to council. I believe our charter as a new council is to help facilitate growth in the area. Our decision here tonight will go a long way to set the platform for the next 3 years as a proactive and can-do council. For too long, our former councils have been perceived and accused by the community as being anti-new business and wanting to turn the town into a retirement village. I will not be offering commentary on this thought. This has been going on for too long now. We are a new council and have to move ahead in the best interests of the Shire. Every potential councillor stood up at the community forums before the election and stated the council needs to make it easier for businesses to want to come here and the need to create new job opportunities in the Shire. The development application report highlights a number of reasons why consent should be refused. I'd like to go through a number of reasons why the development should be approved. While I fully don't understand the council regional environmental planning policy in Direction 28, the assessment report states that while industrial sheds are not unusual in the CBD area and is not the predominant architectural style, the new building is also replacing an industrial building which was painted blue. Let's not also forget this site has sat idle for well over 12 months, something I'm sure visitors to our town, especially from the train station across the road, would also have noticed. Car parking seems to be an issue, but you only have to look across the road to Thompson's Rural Supplies to see that they also rely on street parking, as do majority of businesses in the town. You'll also notice that Bunnings in Carra don't even have a car park. There's also provisions in this application for internal parking in the trade area. Subsection 5.1 states that the development is in a heritage conservation area. As I've already stated, this development is replacing an old blue tin shed. I cannot see a problem with the colours, with the black and the yellow. It may well even brighten up the area. And this report also talks about working with business to allow them to retain their corporate colour schemes, but still being sympathetic to the conservation area. Amcal Chemist was used in this report as an example. This policy must have come into effect before Repco and their bright yellow and red colours came to town. The report itself states that the proposed colour scheme may even add to the character of the area. The report talks about legal precedents if this application is granted. I believe any and all future development applications should be based on merit, and I am of the opinion that there is merit in granting consent to this application before council, and I hope my fellow councillors stand by their comments before the election and also support this and any new developments that have the opportunity to create employment in the Shire. Even if this new store only creates a handful of jobs, that's potentially a handful of families not leaving our Shire to seek further employment opportunities. I'm sure towns like Temora would love the chance to have new development like this. We need new development in town now.
Thanks, Gil. Any other councillor? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, through the chair. Probably I could say here without a doubt that everyone in this room is all for development in our region, Cootamundra and Gundagai. For those who know me, I've been in business for 20 years and I have been involved in multiple businesses. And I've also been a councillor for the best part of 14 years. The recommendation tonight from the staff not to approve, and I'm taking my take on it, isn't that we don't want another hardware store or we don't want development. My issue is I took with it, after 14 years on council, the amount of times that council's found itself on the wrong end of the ledger having to foot bills. And I've made it because we've actually modified our own policies without good reason. So if you bear with me a moment. My first question I asked, why is this incomplete application before us this afternoon? And that's why the council staff put up that it not be approved, that it is incomplete. By incomplete, I mean it flies in contravention of multiple policies developed over many years. We've had no notification to neighbours For those of you who remember the Norm Martin saga in Cootamundra's history, it started well before my time on council, and our building inspector, our policy has always been that we inform the neighbours. Our building inspector at that time, it was in the back corner of the block, it was on a back street, the other house faced the other way. He said, it'll be all right, we don't need to do it. And so it was done in the best use of it to try and speed up a development. It cost council hundreds of thousands of dollars. It went to the Land Environment Court because the guy that we didn't get a comment of, even though we didn't have to listen to him, but part of our policy is we have to get a written notification from all the neighbours and everyone who will be affected. We have to get their approval to tick our box. If we went ahead tonight and just said, yep, no, that'll be fine, any one of those people who will be affected by the building can come back and take council to the Land Environment Court. We have to be able to back up our decision. RMS, we've not advised the RMS. The Olympic Way runs in Hobble Street. That is the highway. It belongs to the Roads and Maritime Service. We have to ask their opinion. We don't have to listen, but it's part of the process. We have to ask. We can't just make decisions without being informed. And that is in the State Environmental Plan Policy. Section 94A was another point in there. Section 94A is whenever we have a development, and I know there's a few developers here tonight, that whenever you do a development, a percentage of your DA gets put aside in the 94A. And that 94A goes to paying for curb and gutter, fixing footpaths, heated swimming pools and the like. So that and the car park behind IGA, that's where that money comes from. In the DA, the whole thing is valued at $300,000. In the DA application, they were asked, where do you come up with that sort of money? And they sent through, there was $161,000 worth of shed to be delivered to site. Anybody who's ever built something, a shed to site's $161,000. You've got a slab, you've got electric, you've got plumbing, and there's bound to be something go wrong. So $300,000 is a bit on the tight side, in my opinion. So we stand to lose some of that 94A that we can use elsewhere in our community. Every developer, and I see Strop up the back there, he's paid 94A all his life whenever he's done a development. There's no disabled car parking, which is in contravention to Australian standards. The other issues I have with the DA was, you know, the detachments are just handwritten. It looks like they were written on the back of a notepad and just attached. Like, this is an important development for our town, and the DA, from my reading, and I've done a few DAs, there's a few gaps in there. There's 6 internal car parks, which to me, and I've used Bunnings in Wagga like everyone else, and I've used the tradie section, you don't go in there because you can't get out. So I can't, and the shed here is much smaller than our local Bunnings in Wagga. The other thing that I found in the DA that there's been no comment, how are we going to receive goods into the premises? We can't get a semi-trailer in on site. It's actually illegal to unload trucks off the road to the forklift. It's actually illegal to reverse trucks on or off a road. These are all, like, I'm not making them up, these aren't council rules. Yes, some of our policies need reviewing, and they do, but the majority still serve as a viable tool to determine development applications. Tonight's not the time to write new policies. And I know there's a lot of people said tonight, oh, it's not heritage. I don't have an issue with the colour. It's on the corner. Whatever we do, there's going to be a lot better than what it is. I know in the DA, there was comment in there that council staff suggested shrinking the shed by 2 or 3 metres on the lane side, and then they could use some of the lane access there, and you could have 12 car parks. It seems like the whole thing isn't about making people, demanding that they fulfil the exact requirement. It's a negotiation. Amcal Chemists today, we had a blurb put out on an email. Amcal Chemist is also in the heritage area. They wanted to do their new shop front, so they actually sat down and they negotiated and worked with council staff to come up with something that'll work for both. Some of this seems like this came to council a fortnight ago, and the council staff said, "Oh, you need to do that, that, and that." And one thing was addressed and it was sent back. So the recommendation from staff to not approve isn't about not giving a young couple a go. It's about getting the paperwork right, protecting us all, and so that we have development into the future that meets a standard. Last week there was like we've got childcares coming up, and if you comply with all the rules, the staff can virtually approve it. They don't need to come to council. It's when we need to operate outside, it must come to council. I want development here as much as anyone else. I own a joinery, I'm a school teacher, I own a pub in town. I want more kids in the school, I want more people doing joinery work, I want more people coming out and spending money. I haven't got any issue with the DA and having a hardware store there. I think it's fantastic. I think it'll be good competition for Mitre 10. But we've got to do the paperwork. And if we don't do the paperwork right, we leave ourselves open for legal entities. And that was why tonight I was prepared to, like, I'll vote against it, not on the grounds I don't want it, but on the grounds that I don't even know why the application's here tonight, because it's incomplete. It just needs to be finished. That's my say. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Would someone else like to have a say?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In line with our election promises and our evenings that we all spoke at and that sort of thing, I would like to make it perfectly clear that we encourage industry and growth and forward thinking. I would like to, in line with Councillor Phillips, pending completed application and fully and completed application, and then it's revisited. Is that something that we could then look at again? So I support the application, I support the development, but the boxes need to be ticked.
Thanks, Councillor Nicholson. Sorry, Penny, I meant to introduce you at the start. I forgot. Anyone else like to have any words? Councillor Shane.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Mayor. I've done a few of these developments myself over the years, and to people who are not necessarily experienced with DAs, it can be quite daunting and confronting. And it can, if assistance isn't given, turn people away. Now, I'm not saying that our council hasn't given assistance. There is a few points. I note that a development application for the demolition of the building at the site was granted by the council on the 22nd of August. Now, I would assume that notification to neighbours and everything would have went out with that DA. So that addresses one of the issues.
No, because it's a new DA, it's a different DA. That's what I'm saying.
Excuse me, Councillor Phillips, just let Councillor Shane have his say.
Okay.
And the consent to that DA was given for that development on the 30th of August in 2017. Now, in most cases, in the experience I've had, one DA could have done the demolition and the erection of that property. It could have been submitted under the one DA. Now, I sat down with James here a few weeks ago, went through his plans with the letter that he got from the council requesting different things. One other issue that was raised was the cost. He had a quote which was provide only. So yes, you have to work out erection costs, groundworks, concrete, a lot of that. It also stated that it should have been in the vicinity of $1 million plus. Well, I'd argue that. I did one a few years ago up the other end of town. It was nowhere near $1 million. And I note in the DA that it stated fixtures as well. Well, that's a bit like charging you for the furniture in your house when you put your DA in as well there. So I'm, you know, like, I don't want to get into a blue with our staff, but I think the staff should be more supportive, more proactive with people like James, who haven't had a lot of experience in DAs, and work through the process. I don't see a great deal of problem with this, honestly. This is a no-brainer. You either be a proactive council and you move on these things and show the community that you do encourage this, and make sure our staff are supportive to these people who are trying to have a go. That's enough.
Councillor Phillip.
Just to clarify, yes, they could have, but that's not what we're here tonight about. We're here, this DA in front of us. One DA does not carry over to another DA. Yes, the building was pulled down, and I'm sure the people were notified. That doesn't mean anything for tonight. Tonight is this DA before us, and even talking that staff should be more helpful. Like, I know I've done DAs and I've always found them pretty helpful. I'm just really mindful, and I've been through this, and the amount of times we've been to the Land Environment Court because council had voted with its heart and not its head. And another one was the feedlot out between, and Councillor Palmer's looking at me and we're shaking our head and going, what a nightmare. We voted with our heart and not our head. I haven't got an issue with the DA, but we need to actually put something in place that we get this DA filled out properly, and so it can come to the next council meeting. So it's done and we can approve it. But it's not about not approving, it's just about making sure we've done the paperwork. Okay, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Would Councillor Kelly?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. Just on what Charlie said there about the staff, I've spoke to a few builders in town the last week or so just regarding developments, and to the letter, every one of them has said how helpful staff have been with their developments. So we just want that known, that the staff have done a great job with development applications.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Councillor Palmer here.
As a mover, I have the right for the last say, I believe.
You certainly did. I was just going to say something, and then if you like, I will
let you go first, sir.
I'd just like to say, and I'll be upfront, I'm for the development. I just think, you know, in our small country towns now, our councils, we've got to be on the front foot all the time. You know, we've got to be forward thinking, like Councillor Nicholson said. We've got to be progressive. And one of the speakers said tonight said, you know, it's all about growth, and that's what it is. And if we don't try and keep growing our communities, we'll just keep going backwards and backwards. We're losing enough services now, state services or government services. So, and I hope, you know, I'm sure this council will be like that. We're there to, as I said, be on the front foot, be progressive, and grow our communities. So I will state that I am for it. So I'd just like that to be let known. So, Councillor Palmer, I will now let you have your say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe that the General Manager would submit a instrument of consent if it wasn't a legally filled out and compliant document. The General Manager has been given till the 31st of October. If it can't be compiled, one would assume it will not get a consent. Secondly, I'd just like to continue on with some of the reasons why I've moved the motion that Council not accept the notice of the refusal. The car parking issue, which seems to be of a great concern to some, that policy can be altered, except where the requirement for a disabled car parking space. But it can be established in Wallandoon Street, adjacent to the development, subject to the Traffic Committee approval. That is a regulation that would depend on approval from an outside committee. I acknowledge that. The last point I want to make, this council needs to be a can-do facilitator rather than a can't-do authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Well, there ends the discussion. I might just ask you, Councillor Palmer, just to reread the motion you've moved, and that was seconded by Councillor Shane, and then I'll put the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council not accept the recommendation of the staff in regard to DA number 2017-82 submitted by Mr. Blake. Furthermore, I move that this development, if this development is permitted with council consent, that the general manager prepare a notice of approval for the application for the next council meeting on 31 October.
Thank you. Well, councillors, you've heard the motion that was put and moved by Councillor Palmer and seconded by Councillor Sheehan. I will now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Noted. It certainly will be Councillor Palmer. It'll be noted for sure. No, I had the P right anyway. Sorry, Doug. That will be noted for sure. So once again, just on that DA, I'd like to thank all the supporters here tonight, whether you were for or against. But it's you know, it's great to see when you're a council, you got all you people here. That just shows that you want to be involved, you want to be part of us, and we need you there. You know, if we're going to grow, we need all the community people behind us. So once again, thanks for coming tonight. We just got one more finance, one more to deal with.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I'll let you. Yeah,
that's a statutory requirement. By the 31st of October, we have to have the annual accounts. We weren't going to worry about it, but we had the special meeting, so we thought we'd take the opportunity to get them formally presented to the auditor, who has actually finished his role yesterday. He's only got to get a couple of valuation figures, and he'll be at the November meeting of council to do a presentation to council and to answer questions from councillors or any members of the public. It's actually a public forum at the meeting in November, and that's the opportunity. So it really is a statutory decision of council. Council can't do much about it. I mean, it's in the past anyway. So we just need a resolution to refer them to the auditor, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alan. We've got a recommendation, and I just, as you said, this will be a public forum, so you can feel free to come and listen to our auditor and his report, and you know, if you need to ask questions. But I think public forums are a good prior to a council meeting, but they just give people in the community an opportunity to voice their opinion. So we've got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Moved Councillor Palmer, seconded Councillor Phillips. All in favour? Aye. Carried. So now we close the meeting at 5:45. Thank you everyone for attending.